Hey guys, let's get more news about Steelers, but first, don't forget to subscribe and leave your like. Proposed trade would reunite Broncos QB duo in AFC North. The Denver Broncos could very well find themselves in an unwitting rebuilding year in 2024 if the trio of quarterbacks vying for the starting spot, Zach Wilson, Jarrett Stidham and Bo Nix, don't work out. That would mean several high-profile Broncos might be up for grabs via trade, which is something Bleacher Report's Christopher Knox thinks could happen by reuniting current Broncos receiver Courtland Sutton with former Broncos quarterback Russell Wilson on the Pittsburgh Steelers. Sutton is currently seeking a raise on the 4-year, $60.8 million contract extension he signed in November 2021 that runs through the end of the 2025 season. The Pittsburgh Steelers got themselves a new quarterback when they signed Russell Wilson in free agency, Knox wrote. But they lack proven receiver depth behind George Pickens and may make a move to add another pass catcher this offseason. If the Steelers do make a move, they could reunite Wilson with former Denver Broncos teammate Courtland Sutton. Wilson was a 9-time Pro Bowler and Super Bowl champion for the Seattle Seahawks before they traded him to the Broncos in a blockbuster deal before the 2022 season. After Wilson signed a 5-year, $245 million contract extension with Denver, he led the NFL's worst-scoring offense in 2022 and was benched in 2023 before being released in the offseason and signing a 1-year contract with the Steelers. One of the players Wilson did forge a connection with during his 2 years in Denver was Sutton, who had the second-best receiving season of his career in 2022 with 64 receptions for 823 yards and 2 touchdowns in just 14 games. Sutton was one of the few Broncos who came to Wilson's defense after his release. "I think he's going to have a lot of success in Pittsburgh," Sutton told the DNVR Sports podcast. "I think Russ is going to continue to build his Hall of Fame legacy. I say that very boldly because I think he gets a bad rap from a few different things that didn't go the way we wanted them to go. I think that the quarterback position gets hit the hardest because that's the guy that controls everything that goes on with the offense. And when we as an offense weren't doing very well, I think he caught the wrath of it." Sutton was the leading wide receiver for the Broncos in each of Wilson's 2 seasons. He's scheduled to make $13.6 million in 2024 and $14 million in 2025. The Broncos have very little proven talent headed into 2024 outside of head coach Sean Payton, cornerback Patrick Surtain II, offensive lineman Quinn Meinerz and Sutton. You can make an argument everywhere else is anybody's guess. Denver drafted a quarterback in the first round, number 12 overall, with Nix, but if he can't show he's a starter immediately there could be problems. Recent history tells us Wilson and Stidham, who have a combined 13-24 record as starters, aren't the ones to build on last season's 8-9 record. While the Broncos wouldn't let Sutton go for cheap, this is expected to be a rebuilding year in Denver, so he could become available before the trade deadline, Knox wrote. If so, Sutton, who recorded 823 receiving yards with Wilson in 2022, could become the veteran number 2 receiver the Steelers need. Justin Fields' disrespect has officially reached new heights in Madden 25 trailer. There have been a lot of things said about Justin Fields since he came into the NFL as a first-round pick back in 2021. Heck, even in the lead-up to the 2021 NFL Draft, there were a lot of things that were said about Fields as people will always try to tear guys down before they even get a chance to play. Things didn't go as everyone had hoped with Fields in Chicago, and both fans and pundits alike have made that very well known. Fields was traded in the 2024 offseason to the Pittsburgh Steelers, where it seems like he's currently capped as being Russell Wilson's backup. There have been rumors floated around throughout the course of the offseason that Fields' athletic traits could be used in some way by the Steelers, including a hysterical idea about him returning kickoffs. This was a rumor that was hopefully never meant to be taken seriously. Although Fields would probably do whatever it takes to help the team win, the Steelers have added return specialists to the roster like Cordarrelle Patterson, Quez Watkins, and Calvin Austin III deliberately. The idea of Fields actually returning kicks is a silly one. Not silly enough, however, for the creators of Madden 25 to include Fields returning a kickoff as the literal first scene of their big trailer for the upcoming video game release. This is taking the disrespect of an individual player way too far. The creators of the Madden 25 video game did something kind of funny by having Christian McCaffrey running away from a bunch of Raiders players on the cover art. That's all good in the scope of fandom and spirit of competition. But having Fields return a kickoff in the first scene of the game's trailer is over-the-top disrespect. Frankly, it's hard to believe it was actually approved. Fans responding to the trailer on Twitter/X are expressing their outrage as well. Justin Fields is a young player trying to make his way in the league and bounce back after a tough start to his career. There are few players who would have excelled in the environment Fields was placed in, and he showed some nice things in spite of that. The reality is that Fields is a reclamation project for the Steelers. He's not being pitched as Pittsburgh's next franchise QB. But to paint him in this light is wild. Buy or sell, Steelers making a mistake by not signing James Daniels to extension. More than perhaps ever before, the Steelers are building an offense that revolves around the offensive line. And you're not going to re-sign your veteran starting guard because you're hoping for a cheaper option? They are fooling themselves if they think it's a good idea not to extend James Daniels' contract this offseason. Let's start with the fact that it's not just James Daniels. How much longer do you think they will have Isaac Seumalo? He is under contract for the next 2 seasons, but he turns 31 in late October. Do you want to replace 2 guards over the next 2 years? And that's assuming that guys like Mason McCormick and Spencer Anderson pan out. We don't even know if Broderick Jones, Troy Fautanu, or Zach Frazier will be the real deal yet. Just pay the good players you already have. He's still 26 years old, and I don't think he's going to reset the market. Sell, teams have to prepare for the future, if they're not fools. They know that they won't be able to pay everyone, so they have to pick and choose. The Baltimore Ravens opted to re-sign Roquan Smith and Justin Madubuike at the expense of Patrick Queen, for example. James Daniels is the guy they won't pay in order to pay others. At least that's the hope. For one thing, they hope to have a big, fat quarterback contract on the books in 2025. They also hope they have to pay George Pickens by then. Oh, and TJ Watt will be ripe for an extension going into the last year of his deal. This isn't just about cap space but also cash spent. Retaining what will be a buttload of cash. That's why the Steelers drafted Mason McCormick. That's why they moved Spencer Anderson to a full-time guard position. They are going to take this season to evaluate their options, and if they feel one can start, they will move on from James Daniels. If they don't look the part, they can always bid to retain his services. It's worth the risk with the Steelers' 2023 season in the rearview mirror following a disappointing year that came up short in the playoffs once again. It's time to start asking more questions. Questions about the team's future in 2024 and beyond. Questions about the standard. And you, fan? What do you think of the situation of James Daniels? Leave your opinion in the comments.